All right. We are going ahead with another podcast here for the Maryland 250 Labor History Project. In around 2000, the workers at Baltimore Gas and Electric tried to an organizing campaign with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, the IBEW. And one of the things that the company did then, which was remarkable, and to my knowledge, the first use of social media as anti-unionism, they created VHS cassette tapes. And for those of you who are too young to remember what those are the way we all learned years ago, uh, and mailed them out to all the workers as an anti-union job. And you will see the link to the video on this page. In response, the IBEW created a video of workers endorsing the union, which you can also see on the page. And so we're glad to have today one of those workers, Al Bankard, who doesn't look a day older than he did in that one,
Ooh, I
um,
don't remember that.
and worked for BGE for many years, and Bill Durkin, who was an organizer for 3 years during this campaign. And the campaigns were not successful, but ultimately, several years ago, the workers at BGE were able to organize, and they now have a local. So, Al, tell us what it was like working at BGE and why the union's campaign started.
Well, back in the 90s, the gas company wanted to reduce its employees, the number of employees it had. And so they created what they called a POP program because they didn't want anyone to think that they were laying people off because they had that reputation of never laying a person off. The story would be if you stayed at BG&E for 5 years, kept your nose clean, you had a job for life. But with the POP program, a lot of people who got laid off were lots of times people who did not have people who really sponsored them or didn't sponsor them, and they would just be laid off. They'd be called into a room and told that they were not have a job anymore. And they were given some paperwork as to where they would go to get some. They would get some training and some pay, but they were escorted to their locker and had to clean it out and then escorted off the property. It was pretty dramatic for a lot of men. Some men were left crying. You know, they had tears in their eyes because their job was that they thought they had for life was taken
Mhm.
away from them. So the union got involved, and I don't know exactly how the union got involved or when it got involved. I was brought in uh, drawn in at a later time when one of the electricians, Ed Tierney at Wagner's, asked me to come, invited me to go to a union meeting, and I went to it, and then I signed the card and became a supporter of the union and actively recruited or promoted the union in the workplace.
You mentioned Wagner's. For people who don't know, what is that?
Wagner's is a electrical power plant that produces electricity for the Baltimore area.
Okay, where is it located?
It's located in Anne Arundel County,
Okay, so you commuted from East Baltimore down to Anne Arundel County.
every day.
Okay,
Yes.
and I would just say, as part of Maryland labor history, what Al just talked about is unfortunately so common. That is, people who go to work at a skilled trade think they're going to have a job for the rest of their lives and are often working at a place where their fathers worked or parents worked, Sparrows Point, Broning Highway, GM, places like that, and then they're suddenly gone. So as Al said, it's a very disruptive experience. Um, what else was going on in the campaign, Al? How did you guys campaign?
Well, we would do we would talk about it amongst our fellow workers and at the power plants. We would also in the evenings we would go out and do home visitation, visit members of the family, members of the plant and their families, and try to encourage them to sign the card, sign on the card, sign a union card,
Hmm.
and we had a very, in fact, the first try, we had a very good, we received well by most of the workers because most of the workers were on board. But we only lost by a small margin the first time. And then I think we lost maybe by like 50 votes. And because it was so close, I'm not exactly sure the number, but it was a low number. But because it was so close, they decided that they would run a second campaign. But the second campaign faltered in the sense that BGE offered, free pizzas, liberal time off from work. If you wanted time off from work, it was very liberal. Whatever an employee wanted, they pretty much got, and it changed the hearts of a lot of the workers. And you could tell that the enthusiasm for the union was declining. For instance, I would stand at the entrance to the power plant with a sign supporting the union, and it would only be me doing it in the morning. It was not like you had 5 to 10 people out there with you. You were pretty much out there on your own.
Okay.
And so the second vote was the defeat was a lot worse.
Okay. And the kind of things that Al talks about, the time off and the kind of benefits, are what you're going to see stressed in the company video, which was sent out. All right. So, Bill, you came into the campaign for one of the elections from another union. You met the organizer. How did you happen to get into it?
Well, I was working as a pipe fitter in UA, Local 602 down in Washington, but I lived in Anne Arundel County, and I was actually going to your classes at the time at the Dundalk Community College. So you brought the point up. I said, I'd be interested in doing a small time tryout as an organizer. And you introduced me to a guy named Gary Heald with the IBW. I'd had an interview with him, and it was supposed to have been for a 6-month deal to be involved in the BGE campaign. I lived in the area. It was easy for me. I knew the area. And so I took the job, and I told my company I was working for, I'll be gone for 6 months. If there's a job, there's a job. There's not, there's not. We're more used to not having jobs for a certain period of time in the building trades. But I was very fortunate and didn't miss a lot of work. So, but I thought 6 months, I'll try it. And he said, fine. And on I went. So I started up at the BGE campaign. They assigned me. First of all, they wondered what I was doing. The building trade is very territorial in an IBW organizing campaign. I said, well, I'm a student. I want to learn what organizing is all about. So what they did, they broke you up into fossil fuels, clericals, mobile units, everything else. And I got a lot of fossil fuels. That's that's where I met Al, Dave Gerber, I think his name, or Dave Korber. Yeah. And there was one other fella. I don't remember them very well because when we lost the election, they gave me a little package with a Christmas card and 3 chunks of coal, picture of Santa Claus. And to this day, I still have those. But that's how I got introduced to it. And my job was, Al was what we called them as VOC, Volunteer Organizing Committee. They were supposed to do the work inside the plant. We could not go in because the company would never let you on the property. We could do things outside the gates, but sometimes that affects, sometimes it did not. But we would coordinate with the VOCs, as we call them. And we'd try to get someone to go with you at night because we house called every evening from about 6:30 so on till dark. And if you could get one of the VOCs to go with you, it was sort of an entry. They might know the person from work or they knew the name, get you in the door. Sometimes most of the time you went on your own. And we'd go up Saturdays and Sundays, and hard to get a fella to give up his only 2 days off and go. Actually, Saturdays. We did not work on Sundays. So I did that went on for almost 2 years. I think this was the second campaign, I think there were 3 campaigns. I think this was second. If it wasn't, it was third. They had lost. I did not see those videos until just recently. I knew they were out there. I'd heard about them. And some people talk about, some of the VOCs talk about them, but we just knew they're out there. And I experienced that in your classes from other union busting campaigns. So it went pretty well. I enjoyed the job of ringing doorbells and not running away. Just wait until the owner comes to the door and then explain to me, I'm with the union. Would you like to talk? And I always prided myself in get the guy to talk, whether he's pro or con, get him to talk. And it was very effective. I had a couple instances where they just were not going to talk to me. The door was going to be slammed. But I got to meet a lot of the workers at the plant, good, bad, and indifferent. And I got to work with Al and a bunch of them, and had some pretty interesting experiences. We were in the city one night, getting later and later and later. And it was a rough neighborhood. And we're sitting at a light, a stoplight, and there's a bunch of young fellas on the street corner. And I'm not paying attention. No, I'm waiting for the light to change. And the gentleman with me was from West Virginia. He said, Bale, you got to run that, take a right on this light. I said, Eric, this is right there, no right turn on the light. He said, well, where's the sign that says no selling crack on the street corners? Run the damn light. So I said, that's a good point, Eric. So we went through the light, met a customer. But there was things like that, little adventures through the big city that I've always found exciting. Okay. And then I say meeting new people, I've always enjoyed that. Either the pros or cons, because if pros make you feel good, the cons make you earn your money. Mm-hmm. Had to talk, but something I never regretted. Several years later, I went back and ran for the union organizing job in my union, was elected three times. So it was a good experience for me and a good opportunity to learn.
Very good.
Most enjoyable job.
Al, do you remember making the videos?
Yes, I do remember making the videos, yes.
What was the response? Well, let me start out. What was there a response from people when they got the first video? And I assume you got one also, or mailed out to everybody on the list. And about how many people were there in the unit eligible to vote?
Oh, I can't remember the number anymore. I know I can't remember the number anymore. I don't know.
A couple thousand.
Probably was, yes.
Okay. And so you got the video, and then did you hear any response from people at work about it?
Very, very little. No, it was almost like it was a mute point. They may have seen it, but they didn't comment. They didn't say nice message or I agree with you. Nothing came out like that. And okay. I believe that was the second campaign. Like I said, it was a lot more colder, the second campaign.
Okay.
Yes.
And then how did you guys decide to do a video of your own?
I was arranged really, I think it was the union, the IBEW decided they wanted to do that. And then they asked people who would volunteer them to send a message, to be part of the message. And I volunteered to do that.
Okay. And you were great. You were not contacted by Hollywood after that video?
No, I was not.
But it was such a unique experience for us to see that. And of course, now social media is everything. But that was, again, a unique thing, and we're fortunate to have them. As I said, I want to thank Mike Ayers of IBEW Local 24 for digitizing them. So, any other memories of the campaign, guys?
Yeah, I would like to say, I remember Al. He was sort of my hero there because he would go in with his union shirt on. And of course, no one else would have any union or garb on. And I always thought, he's like the man who walked out the door and forgot his pants because everybody looked at him. And I thought, you got to have nerve to do that. And I thought there was quite a few like that. But Al seemed to be always by himself wherever he went. I don't know.
Yeah.
He did visit me and he wears his leisure shoes one time. I thought, well, they always would stare at him. No, I just met very great people. I've met my heroes in the labor movement from organizing.
Great.
Because I will sometimes question would I've had the nerve they had.
Yeah. Good. Al, any other memories before we go?
Not off the top of my head. No, I can't think of anything else to add.
All right. You ever run into any of the old BGE guys?
Not really. I mean, we send Christmas cards to each other, to some of the members, but that's about it. We don't get together. When they do get together, it's often at a time when I can't be there. The time just doesn't match up, so
okay,
we miss that.
All right. Anything else, guys? All right, Bill Durkin, Al Bankard, thank you so much.
Thank you.